the exact moment the adrenaline stops masking the exhaustion, a final, heavy drop into a chair, surrounded by the physical debris of a broken plan. 6 months earlier, this started with an intense burst of clarity. The goal was specific and ambitious: clear $50,000 in personal debt by the end of the calendar year. The strategy to get there relied on flawless math. Every waking hour was mapped out, assigning strict monetary values to time spent working versus time wasted. To maximize the timeline, all the comfortable inefficiencies were stripped out. No weekend outings, no streaming subscriptions, and no casual evenings out. Every spare dollar and minute was rerouted directly to the finish line. On a spreadsheet, this timeline is bulletproof. The math dictates that if you follow the daily parameters exactly, you hit the goal in record time. Zero room for error means absolute efficiency. But a plan perfectly optimized for an algorithm ignores the single most volatile variable in the equation: human execution. In the first few weeks, the momentum is intoxicating. The debt numbers shrink rapidly. But the Friday nights spent declining invitations slowly build a quiet, compounding isolation. This diagram tracks decision fatigue. Regulating behavior is a finite resource. Every time you resist a temptation, your cognitive battery takes a hit. Without time to recharge, that willpower battery routinely hits absolute zero, dragging the brain into deep cognitive exhaustion. Operating at peak daily compliance extracts a heavy mental toll. Without a margin for comfort, the mind becomes a pressure cooker waiting for a release valve. Then a completely ordinary Thursday happens: a flat tire on the commute home. It costs 2 hours of scheduled work time and $60 unexpected. Because the schedule was optimized to the minute, there is no slack to absorb the delay. The $60 expense immediately puts the weekly budget in the red. The realization sets in. After 60 straight days of perfect execution, the streak is broken. The math is ruined. In an instant, that accumulating psychological tension finally snaps. The willpower reserve is too depleted to course correct, and the rational constraints give way entirely. The reaction is rapid and destructive: a massive takeout order, abandoned project files, and a weekend of impulse purchases. Months of calculated savings are wiped out in 48 hours of self-sabotage. This collapse wasn't a lack of character. When you design a system with a 0% tolerance for emotional strain, catastrophic failure is built into the blueprint. The fatal flaw in pure, cold rationality is that it treats humans like servers. It assumes we can output maximum effort indefinitely, without requiring maintenance or joy. This comparative chart illustrates the difference between rational and reasonable planning. A reasonable mindset actively calculates that you will get tired, make mistakes, and want fun. A hyper-rational system relies on flawless success. When a sudden stressor hits, the rigid path can't absorb the force. It shatters entirely. A reasonable system has planned inefficiencies built in. When hit with the same stressor, it bends to absorb the impact and springs back on course. Any long-term strategy requires flexibility. Emotional resilience is far more valuable to a lasting goal than a perfectly efficient spreadsheet. So, the recovery process begins by throwing out the old spreadsheet and starting fresh from a blank page. The new goal is dialed back. Instead of clearing the debt in 1 year, the timeline is extended to 2. The daily output requirements are deliberately cut in half. Budget lines are actively created for things that don't produce a monetary return. Funds are set for weekend dinners. Strict boundaries are drawn to protect evening downtime. Most importantly, this plan introduces a margin of safety, a buffer of unassigned time and money sitting there entirely to absorb the cost of a bad day. Run this new plan through an optimization algorithm and it looks terrible. It takes twice as long, leaves money on the table, and actively schedules low productivity periods. But that loss of daily efficiency is the price of admission. It is the necessary tax you pay to guarantee you stay in the game over the long haul. The real world continues to throw obstacles. A surprise dental bill arrives, and a flu knocks out 3 days of work. This time, the dental bill is paid from the safety buffer, and the lost workdays are absorbed by the slower timeline. The streak bends, but the mind doesn't break. This area chart plots both approaches across several years. The sharp spike of the rational plan burns out quickly, yielding little total progress. The undulating line of the reasonable plan progresses slowly, but never stops. eventually eclipsing the rational plan's total volume. The goal is eventually cleared, not through a frantic, breathless sprint, but through calm, sustainable endurance. We reach the finish line not by trying to math our human weaknesses out of existence, but by giving them a reasonable place to live.